Rebellions are built on hope.
And welcome to another episode of Radio Rebellion, a Star Wars podcast. I am your host, Alberto Calderon, and we are back with Season 7 of Radio Rebellion podcast. It's been a while. Someone else next to me, our co-host Tony, is not here today. Sorry, co-host Otis not with us today, but the next big thing here, the co-host of a film, Films Not Included, and also a podcast of Star Wars, our friend Tony Figueroa is back in the Rebellion. Tony, how are you doing today? Again, thanks for joining us. Your friend Oti, I guess 4 weeks wasn't enough for him to be out, but you're here today. We'll take it. How are you doing today?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join. And yeah, Oti he needs his time. He needs his beauty sleep and his rest. That's how he works best, I guess.
I know. I said I'm gonna be out for 2 weeks, and he said, "Oh, I'm gonna be out the last weekend of July." He wasn't gonna be available. I was okay. Let's take the whole week off, the whole month of July off, and we'll come back rested, a whole summer break. And then this week, when I said, "Hey, we're ready to be back," he's like, "I'm not ready. I'm still on a trip or wherever he is." But again, thanks to you for jumping in and saving the day on that side.
Of course, always happy to help. And whenever Oti can't make it, I'm always happy to join in.
Yeah, I'm happy. Not just you. Got a few other people that jumped in and kind of called, "Hey, if you need a co-host, let me know." So I got a few people. I got feelers out there. If I need to replace Oti anytime, I have a few people that can come in.
Nice.
But yeah, it's been a while. A lot of things have happened in this month that we've been out. Tony, you along with Oti have continued your film podcast and also your Star Wars podcast when you help out with Oti over there. And we're going to talk about it in a few minutes. But before we start, as always, make sure to subscribe to our channel. This is the first time that you're joining us. Thanks for being here. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button and like, and be sure you're notified. Subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes when they drop, usually on Saturdays, but you never know. We might take a week off and then you think that we're off forever, but we'll be back. And if you're listening to this on the audio podcast when it comes out later in the week, also thanks, and make sure to leave us a rating, review, whatever podcatcher you might be listening to that day. All right, Tony, before we start, let me see who's out there in the chat. Again, Oti is the one that takes care of the chat, so I gotta see if I remember all this. Our friend Dale is here. Hello there, Dale. He said he's out there working in the yard, trying to get his back stretch. And dude, I just turned 43 during my break, so I also need to stretch out a little bit.
Damn.
It happens when you get up there in age. And our friend Brennan, Page Turner's the word not. Hello there, my fine friends. Brennan was one of those that said he was ready to jump in and help out. I told her, thanks you, Brennan. We got to get you on an official show. And after today, I'll reach out to you with Oti and we'll plan that out to have you here. And then, of course, Dale, he's finally here. Thanks for being here. All right, so if you guys are ready, I'm not ready. Let's talk Star Wars and Star Wars news.
Star Wars news.
All right, Tony, this is the big one because a lot of people are probably going to be asking, why are we even doing here, talking about Star Wars, talking about anything has to do with the strike. There's a big strike going on for a while. The WGA, the Writers Guild, and the Screen Actors Guild have been on strike for a while. The Writers Guilds have been on strike since May 2nd, and then they were joined by SAG earlier in July, mid-July, around July 13th, they've been on strike. Almost a little bit of a break yesterday when the studios kind of went to the writers to say, hey, let's have a meeting to see if we can actually start meeting again, and that didn't go too well from what I read. But we'll get into that in a minute. But first, Tony, I know it's a tricky subject right now. If you're a podcaster, the word influencer is thrown out there. Who's an influencer? Who's not? What are you allowed to talk if you're part of the union, if you're non-union and all this? And I'll go with my side first, and then I'll let you talk. I don't want to talk for Oti, but you know him. You have podcasts with him. I listened to the ones you did on the strike a couple of weeks ago. It was very informative also. But first off, let's talk about the strike before we talk about why we're actually just talking about it today. And most people know about this. We're not breaking ground, but writers and the actors basically, apart from better pay, pay that they need, especially with the kind of grow of streaming channels, Netflix, Disney Plus, Paramount, all these streamings out there. That's the big thing. Nobody does cable anymore. Residuals is the big thing. They're not getting paid for the shows that they're doing. Again, this goes for both actors and writers. Um, the use of AI,
Mhm.
more writers in the writer's room, longer seasons, longer series, and all these issues that, of course, for them, it's a fair way of living. For the
Mhm.
studios, we know the Bob Igers and their comments out there, how they just treat people that don't have millions of dollars like nothing. Like, why are you complaining about your $15 an hour? Be happy about it. So we understand, and I'll speak for myself, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for you. When we support the actors, we
Mhm.
support the writers, we're on their side. That's why we're here talking about
Yes.
Star Wars. It's because of what the writers and the actors bring to it. It's not what Bob Chapek and all the Safrans and all those guys, we don't care about them. It's the
Yeah.
actors and the writers that make this show. So we, of course, are in support of all that they're doing. But why are we doing this show? Why aren't we just out there saying no, we're not gonna do anything? But before I say, kind of go a little bit to my end, what are you? Why did you guys decide to just keep going with your shows?
Well, I mean, there's many sides of it. I guess the two biggest ones is that even though there is a strike, there is still stuff happening. There's still
Hmm.
movies coming out, there's still shows coming out, and we want to talk about them. We want to be able to share our thoughts on them, our opinions on them, and in our way show that's kind of our way of showing the best support is that we're watching the stuff, we're sitting
Hmm.
down, we're giving our side of it. And on the other hand, it's like we never ever set out to do this for money, for
Yeah.
fame, for getting the studios to be like, hey, talk about our stuff. We just want to talk about the stuff that we talk about. Like the reason why even El Podcast de Star Wars even exists is because Oti realized that in Film Not Included, he was talking way too much about Star Wars, and we needed to
Yeah.
somehow branch that out. But we just like the content is out there. The
Hmm.
strike isn't gonna stop that. Even though we obviously support the writers, the actors, and then we want what they want. But the content isn't going to stop. So why should we stop talking about it? Now, if we are ever in a position where, we were to somehow make money out of that, then we wouldn't do that because that
Hmm.
would definitely be, crossing the line and, in both ways,
Hmm.
crossing the line,
Yeah.
morally and crossing the picket line, of the strikes. So, then we would never do that. But we're not in it for that. We just want to be able to talk about the stuff, and there's so much stuff to talk about that isn't just related to what's happening with the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild. So, you know, we aren't just gonna stop talking about everything because one side of the world kind of stopped
Yeah.
churning. We still have
Yeah.
books, we still have video games, we still have so many things that we want to talk about. But I guess that's really our side of things. And like I said, we both and I think Oti will definitely agree with this. We are 1,000,000% on the side of the writers and the actors. And there's there's so many facets to all this, and there's so many nuances, and
Hmm.
there's obviously differences, but we stand behind them, and we want them to get out what they want out of these strikes, and we'll help however we can help. if
Yeah.
if tomorrow they come out with something and they're like, hey, podcasters, if you do this, you'd be helping us even more, then we'll 100% do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of information out there, and it's difficult to parse out what kind of in what lane we kind of fall into. Yeah, we're podcasters, we're YouTubers, are we influencers? We're actually influencers. Are if you get paid by the studio or so, or a company or something to promote their product, that's basically the real influencers they're talking about. But if 20 people are watching this show and we say something and we influencing them. So it's weird out there. But like you said, we're 100% in favor of what the actors and the writers are asking. Right down there, you can see a bunch of places that you can go and help out. I'm going to have probably that running throughout the whole show, not just today, but till the strike ends, so people know where to help out. That's going to be also down in the description of the video. The links are going to be there. Thanks, Mo. Mo is here. We're back, Mo. Thank you for holding down while we took a little break, and we're back. But Prima is here with us. So for me, because this happened as I took the break. So all this happened right as I was taking the break. Even though the writers had been on strike for about a month before I went on break, people were still doing shows. There wasn't this, oh, now that the actors are also striking, now everyone has to step back. But for me, apart from, I want to talk about Star Wars, same as you and Otis kind of decided, it's the reason I started this podcast was because I just wanted an outlet to talk about Star Wars. It wasn't ever to get anything from them. Like we've never been invited to a TV premiere or a movie premiere. I haven't even gone to Star Wars Celebration, so I'm not getting paid by Lucasfilm or Disney or anyone to do this show. I'm not on the YouTube monetization program, so I'm not getting paid there. I don't get paid from my audio podcast from Anchor. I don't get paid because I don't have anyone telling me, hey, here you go, promote our show. So I'm losing money right now, right? So I gotta pay for the internet, I gotta pay for the lights.
Paying to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah, so I'm not doing this because I want to help the studios out there. But also, like you said, the shows are out there. But what we try to do, of course, is talk about the writing, talk about the actors, talk about what they brought to the show, kind of promote that side of it. If we see that it's going more to talking about Disney or Lucasfilm, then okay, we're kind of towing that line. But I don't see this show and 90% of the podcasts out there kind of crossing that picket line, being scabs, people just throwing these words out without knowing what they actually mean. We're not influencers by the true definition of the word. If for some reason Lucasfilm calls next week and says, hey, we need someone to come to the premiere of The Acolyte, unfortunately, then I would, it will be great to go, but then I understand, okay, they're paying me to go watch this TV show and then promote it online. So then I will be kind of crossing that line, but we're not doing that. The only thing I've gotten from that side has been advance on books, which has nothing to do with this. So on that side, we kind of decided, I think we were okay doing this show. At the same time, I 100% understand people that say, you know what, I'm just going to support them 100% and I'm going to stop doing my shows till the strike is over. If that's the way you want to help out, 100% behind you. No one's here is trying to be better than anyone. So just do what you feel comfortable doing and we're all good.
I think even with striking and I'm not gonna get into the whole. I know that Stephen Amell recently got into hot water by talking, but I'm not like even with striking. There's people who strike and there's people who don't strike. That doesn't mean that they don't support the cause. That just means that they do their own way of doing things. So if that's how you want to do it, and I think it's what Oti and I have been doing on our show, is that every show we'll just tell you, we'll be like, hey, we know the strike is happening. We support you guys, and then we'll just continue on. Yeah. But I think there's so many nuances. There's so many different ways. I think at the end of the day, as long as us, the creators, us, the people who are, putting our opinions and our voices out there, we know where we stand. I think that's all that matters, because there's always going to be other people who will just want to talk and will just want to say something. And, we don't have time for that.
No, there's enough fighting out there. We don't need to add to it. Yeah. All right. So let's keep going. And our first kind of news story, something that it's taken years to get off the ground, and it's finally, there's some news on the Lando TV show. So after 2 years after it's been announced, we finally have some movement in the development on the Lando TV series. According to Jeff Snyder, brothers Donal and Steven Glover will be taking over writing the show from director Justin Simien, who just did the Haunted Mansion movie. I had some comments like a week before this news drop, but the Glovers have secretly been attached to Lando for several months at this time, with Simeon being aware of the changing creative leads on the series, although Simeon said after the Glover's news broke out that he found out through an Instagram post, which
Hmm.
is not the best look because
Not
as he
really.
was out promoting his movie, I guess he was asked about the Lando show. He said, "Yeah, it's I haven't heard anything in a while, but it's still out there." And then a week later or 2 weeks, yeah, well, now Donald Glover's gonna be writing, and he's like, well, "What the hell is going on?"
Mhm.
That's separate. We don't need to talk about it unless you want to. But Tony, finally, it's been
Yep.
2 years. Are you excited for the Lando series, and are you surprised that we're gonna get it with Donald Glover and his brother being the main writers of the show?
I mean, I'm not surprised with the success that they've had with Atlanta and
Yeah.
just their creative success in general. I'm not
Mm.
surprised that they're attached to it. Um, I think this is one of those shows that, or one of these news that when it first broke out, like, yeah, of course I was excited about it because I did like Donald Glover's interpretation in Solo, and I
Mhm.
was, hey, more Star Wars content.
Yeah.
I am I mean, right now I'm like, hey, great. If this show happens, awesome. But if it doesn't, I would also be okay with it. Like, I'm not 100% like dead on. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like the Acolyte, which I'm very, very excited for.
Very excited.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excited that it's moving forward. I'm excited that it's getting some more momentum. It's kind of weird that they would announce, hey, these are our two writers that are gonna be pushing forward, and we're in a writer's strike, so it's like how is this even happening? Unless, and I don't know how the inner workings are. They could have
Yeah.
handed in some scripts before the writer's strikes. I don't know, but I'm excited. I think it's going to be great if they get to move forward with it because, like I said, they've had some great successes in terms of production and in terms of moving forward TV
Mhm.
shows like what they did with Atlanta. So, hey, I can't say anything else. I do want to know if Billy D is going to be involved or not because I think that's kind of really what's going to sell it for me.
Yeah, right. We'll get to that in a minute. Same as you. I'm surprised that news. It hasn't been officially announced by Lucasfilm, of course, because of the strike. They can't say this. It's kind of weird, right? They kind of got leaked or whatever right as
Mhm.
they started going on. Same as all these announcements for the Fantastic Four casting. I'm in the middle of the strikes, and now everyone's. All this is
Yep.
happening. Dude, come on. I'm gonna read first this comment from the Sixth Eternal. He's saying that excited for this show, but I'm very dubious. I just hope Donald is well aware of the source material and what to do with it. I'm optimistic. What do you guys think? So I'm surprised that this show is happening. I thought this was one of those similar to the Ryan Johnson trilogy, which I thought
Mhm.
had more of a chance to be made than the Lando show. So I'm very surprised that it's at this point now. When Simeon said, "Yeah, we haven't really talked about it in a while. I had something, but I really haven't moved forward," I'm like, "Dude, this isn't happening," or it's so far back in their mind that I won't worry about it. And also with all the comments from Kathleen Kennedy, every time that she got asked, she's like, "Yeah, it's still happening. We're just
Mhm.
waiting for Donald Glover's availability." And at least myself, I thought was his acting availability. Maybe it's his writing. So I think from with Star Wars, even like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ewan McGregor, they've been working on this for 4 years that he had to lie to no,
Mhm.
no, this isn't happening. Yeah, if they call me, I'll do it. So it might be something that, yeah, we're waiting on Donald Glover's availability. They might have been working on the script for a while now. Well, I'll say, even I love Solo, one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and I really enjoy Donald Glover's portrayal of Lando. Lando's not my favorite character. He's never been my favorite character.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I'm not that excited for the series because I don't need a series for every character. This seems very reactionary. That Donald Glover was one of the breakouts from the Solo movie. That
Mhm.
they said, yeah, forget about the main character. Let's just go with him and do a movie with him. So I don't know how much demand there is for this right now out there. So that's similar to what the Sixth Eternal is saying. Is am I excited? Like you said, it's Star Wars. Of course, I'm gonna watch it. It depends what story we get. I don't
Yeah.
know. And like you mentioned with Billy D. Williams, is this gonna be him at the beginning of his show going through his Calrissian Chronicles, doing an introduction, then going to Lando, which is what a lot of people think. But he needs to be there, right? He needs to be included in some form.
I think it's one of those. It's a weird thing to say, but it's like my gut is saying that I don't want this, but like my
Yeah.
mind obviously wants more Star Wars content and just wants to see it. I just don't know. It's like, is this where we should be focusing on? Is this where we
Exactly.
should be
Yeah.
putting like all our eggs in this basket? It's like, yes, Donald Glover, as much as I love him as both an actor, as a musician, as a creator, as a writer, eh, is he what I want to see the most of? Like maybe not. Like maybe there are other stories that are worth telling, um that we should have been devoting more of our time to. It's like I was definitely much sadder when they said that Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron was not going to
Yeah.
happen. It's like, then why are we doing Lando?
Yeah, I've said here I don't know how long. I want Star Wars to move forward in terms of giving new characters, giving new stories. I want the Acolyte, if even Skeleton Crew, which is part of this Mando universe, is still new. It's new characters, new stories, new settings. That's what I
Mhm.
want. Give me more new stuff. I'm kind of done with. I don't want to say done because that's Star Wars, but all these legacy characters and the same Clone Wars era stuff and the original trilogy. I want to move away either in the past 300 years, like the James Mango movie, 1,000 years before, or
Mhm.
let's go past the sequel trilogy. Let's follow that Ray movie, that all this new territory. Let's do that, not backtrack to all this. But also, when is this coming out? We have Ahsoka coming out now. We still have The Acolyte next year. We have Andor season 2. We have Skeleton Crew. Most likely Mandalorian season 4 plus Dave Filoni's movie. When is this show gonna come out? Is there plus The Bad Batch season 3?
Mhm.
2026, 2027? They keep saying that they want to put a hold on what, not push so much Star Wars and Marvel stuff out there, but then all this stuff keeps getting announced. I don't know. Sometimes it seems that there's different, uh, I don't know, different. They're giving us different information in what they want
Yeah.
to do with Star Wars as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they just have all their wires crossed over there, and
Yeah.
they're not exactly sure what to do right now. I do think that i- if they are going to move forward with doing a Lando show, I think the best thing for them to do is to somehow at least tie it into what's happening in the bigger universe, be
Hmm.
it like introduce characters that we will then see in either Mando season
Hmm.
4 or the Ahsoka series or anything, or give us something that will propel the story forward, because I agree with you 100%. I'm kind of done with what we've already seen, as much as I love these characters, and like
Yeah.
of course, like I'm so excited that Ahsoka's coming back and that we're going to see how the story is finally supposed to end. I do want new characters. I think it's the reason why I love the High Republic so much, is
Yeah.
because it's all new. It's literally something that we have never seen before.
Hmm. All right. So hopefully we'll get more information as this get closer to production after they resolve this strike. All right,
Mhm.
so let's move on to something that we don't have no problem talking about, and it's from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi, the 40 authors doing 40 stories for the 40-year anniversary of Return of the Jedi. This past week, it was revealed on Twitter. I'm not calling it the other name. They revealed the 40 authors and all these stories they're going to be doing. Before we talk a little bit about some of the story highlights that pop out, have you read the previews from a certain point of view books or not yet?
I haven't fully read them, and I think I've only read a couple of stories of the first one,
Hmm.
the Star Wars from a
Yeah.
certain point of view. I haven't done the Empire Strikes Back, but I'm usually not a fan of anthology books. I like something that I can sit down and it's a whole story that I'm reading,
Hmm.
as opposed to many different stories and
Yeah.
different characters. Um, this one excites me just because like all of these different stories that that they just released, like the little snippets for, like
Yeah.
kind of a few of them did get me excited. Um, I just don't know if I should just start with the first one and then, make my way
Oh
through
wow.
them, or just get
Yeah.
this one, or I don't know how these work. Like, what's canon now? I guess everything is.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like them because I love that that's what they are. They're just pushing the story forward for
Mm.
so many different things and so many different like parts of the story that we never really think about, but suddenly they're like, hey, we're making a short story about, when they reattach Luke's hand after Empire Strikes Back, and it's like, okay, shit, like I need to read that.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, and this is my first one. I say, like I mentioned before, I've been lucky enough to receive some advanced copies of Star Wars book. First one was actually a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, Rise of the Red Blade, which we talked about last week. I mean, on our last show, and I did get an advance of this book, a digital copy, and I started reading it. So I gotta be careful with what I say because it's still under embargo, I think, till August 15th. So I'm just gonna do this part like I haven't started reading the book. I'm about a quarter of the way through and read about 13 or 14 of the stories. This is my first one of these anthologies. Same like you, I don't want to say I'm not a huge fan of anthologies. I'm not a big fan of the background characters and glove shadows, and everyone have
Got it,
this
got it, got
little,
it.
oh, that guy back there just minding his business. I want to know his backstory. I don't care. Give me the main story and maybe some supporting cast. I don't care about, like you said, who attached Luke Skywalker's arm and what was going through his head that day. I don't. That's not why I watch the movies. And that's what these books are.
Hmm.
I very not even back. I guess background characters and their place inside different scenes in the movie, which kind of sounds exciting, but they're extremely big books. So am I gonna go through 400 pages for maybe 3 or 4 stories that seem cool? So I don't know. But I think it depends also on the movie. If you love Return of the Jedi, if that's one of your movies, then I think you might. You know what? I want to go. I want to see what's happening. So let me go through some of these stories that I kind of wrote down before I started reading, which, like you said, maybe these seem interesting, and then let me know if any jump out to your or any that you think that I might not mention. So, Fancy Man, which is a Max Rebo story. Max Rebo is going through a renaissance. A lot of people love that blue guy.
Hell yeah.
The key to remembering is the EV-99 droid and her search for remembering. The plan, Malakili and the Rancor in Jabba's palace.
Hmm.
Reputation, Boba Fett, that's my guy. So, of course, I'm waiting for that one. Everyone's a Critic, which is Salacious B. Crumb. It's going to be interesting. My Mouth Never Closes, the Sarlacc Just Wanting a Friend. The Light That Falls, which is that dragon snake from Dagobah when Yoda dies. From a certain point of view, Kenobi's ghost, of course, talking to Luke when Luke kind of goes, really? You didn't tell me that Vader was my dad? There are multiple stories from the pilot's point of view. The Fall, Sidious, from Sidious's point of view, when Luke says he's a Jedi like his father before him. The Veteran, which is a Dexter Jettster story, which I don't know how he falls into this because he wasn't in the movie. And then, of course, Brotherhood, which is Anakin returning to the light, back again as a Force ghost, talking to Kenobi and I'm guessing with Yoda. So those are some that kind of jumped out at me when I
Hmm.
saw them. Did any of these or any other jump out at you that you really are looking forward to reading?
I mean, you mentioned pretty much all the ones that like jumped out to me. The Boba Fett one is the one I think I'm most excited for, just because that's always been an intriguing part of the story. The
Mm,
Kenobi's ghost is also one that I
yeah.
think would be great. There's one, I don't remember the name of it, but there was one that was about the remnants of the Empire.
Okay.
And that one seemed interesting to me just because of what we're leading to in the whole Mandoverse and
Mhm.
what's happening there.
Oh, is it the
Um,
Pride one?
oh, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because that's the one by Christopher Priest, not Christopher Priest.
Adam
Adam's
Christopher.
Christopher.
Yeah.
Talking about
He
Christopher Priest.
loves Pride. So.
He does love Pride.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite things in the whole Shadow of the Sith, like that he
Yeah.
has his like alcohol thing. He's always just
Yeah.
drinking. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think like you, what I think this book to me is like a coffee table book. It's like
Mm,
something that I'll
could be.
have there and like, hey, I just want to read a quick little story about Star Wars. Let me like peruse through. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it to come out, and I do feel like this one in particular excites me more just because of where it is, because we're in this Return of the Jedi kind
Mm.
of world. So could it tie into what we will be watching with Ahsoka and with the Mandoverse? Like I don't know, who knows?
Yeah, this again, anthologies are weird. Do you go in order? Do you pick and choose which story you want to? I go in order just because I don't want to miss one and then forget about it. But
Mhm.
I guess that's one of the cool things, right? If you don't care about Max Rebo, then don't read that story. Go to the Boba Fett one, and then when you have 5 or 10 minutes, then maybe read it. So at least it gives fans that option.
Mhm.
That if you didn't want to read the first 100 pages, you can just pick and choose where to go. And if you don't like one story, then there's 39 more coming that you might enjoy. All right, Sith Eternal is adding in the chat. I know what you mean. I don't want to know about the thoughts of the Emperor's royal guard as he was told to leave the throne room, which I think is one of the stories. It just doesn't matter and it's pointless filler for the universe. Again, it depends how you see it, but it kind of depends. Again, it depends on the stories that are being out there. Again, I've read a few. I won't say anything till the embargo closes. But for people out there that enjoy these type of stories, have bought the other books, I'm sure they'll be happy for this. But it was a cool kind of reveal. The way they revealed all those
Mhm.
40 cards, giving a little bit more information, that's always interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's keep going. And then we talk about the Acolyte a little bit today. So let's keep talking. There's a little bit of news. I think this was from Star Wars Celebration, so before the strike. But bear with me, I got a lot of notes here. So back during Star Wars Celebration, some of the stars of the Acolyte sat down with the Dagobah Dispatch podcast and had some comments regarding the show's fight choreography. Manny Jacinto said, if you love that sequence with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, I think you're going to enjoy this show. Come on, that's very high praise, so let's see how that
Mhm.
kind of pans out. Charlie Barnett added, I will say too, not to shade, but we have a lot more tangible physical moves than I saw in that fight. As badass as it is, there's a lot more grounded work that goes into our stunt training and our stunt performers. We have an awesome stunt team too, doing so much without cables, without CGI, and without a lot of effects. It makes the fight seem so much visceral. I know I've been hit on the head a couple of times. And then rounding up the comments about the action, Daphne King says, even the way the stunts have been coordinated, they come from an Asian background. All the fight training we have gone through is so heavily influenced by samurai martial arts. And there's some other comments. Tony, you mentioned you're excited for the Acolyte. This has been
Mhm.
my most excited, the most excited been for Star Wars show since it's got announced. Same there with Andor. When you read these comments that the fights are gonna be to the level of the Phantom Menace, or what even more better choreographed. I know some people have issues with that fight. As cool as it is, that it's 1, 2, 3 dog, 1, 2, 3 jump. I love it. I don't care.
Mhm.
When you read or hear these comments, does your excitement go up? Are you a little bit okay? Don't put my hopes up too high. Where are you right now?
I mean, I don't think Leslie Headland could come out tomorrow and say that this show is going to be the best show ever made in the history of the world, and that could not hype me up more than I already am. So
Yeah,
I feel like anything that they say, I'm just gonna be excited for it. Um, I think it's just what I think they really want to say with these news, aside from them being like, hey, it's gonna be like a really cool sword fight. It's like they're going into the um it's kind of like what George wanted to do. It's like
hmm
these like real practical fights, and like the
yeah,
stunt where like sure the Duel of the Fates in Phantom Menace, as great a fight as it is nothing compared to the choreography of Obi-Wan and Anakin in episode 3. So it's like I'm trying to imagine like a mix between
yeah.
those two, and like that's what we'll be getting. I do like that there's so much background of the martial arts going into it, and having seen the amount of work that went into the Mandalorian fight scenes, as different as they were. They're
Sure.
not like these great like lightsaber sequences, but even the Obi-Wan one, that like one of my favorite scenes in the whole of Obi-Wan is like that Anakin Obi-Wan
Oh yeah.
um Attack of the Clones kind of like era sequence. But that type of choreography, that type of fight work, that's what I'm hoping that we'll see. And I think that's just going to give a level of realism to the show, which is something that we have been seeing recently in Star Wars, right? That mix of practical effects and
Mm.
CGI, how we mix both of them to enhance the story. I think that's one of the things that made Andor just so spectacularly great, is that yes, it did have these CGI sequences, but it also had these amazing practical sets and these like amazing practical sequences that were also really good. So I mean, I'm excited for it. Like I said, nothing could hype me up more for the Acolyte. I'm just
Yeah.
I just want to know where we are, this being like that kind of like first dive into post High Republic, pre Phantom Menace world.
Mhm.
It's kind of like that right in between.
Yeah, yeah.
Where are we? What's happening? Why is Vernestra there? What's happening? Like, it's so
This is
many
the High
things. So many
Republic.
things.
It's the High Republic, and that's all I need to get excited. I
Yeah.
don't care anything else. Just at the High Republic, I'm gonna be there. Why is Vernestra there with her with no hair? I don't know how many years the Meridians live,
I
but
don't
she's
even
there.
care anymore. I don't even
It's
care.
gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
But even for people that don't enjoy the Phantom Menace, they'll say the only cool thing was the lightsaber fights.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about Revenge of the Sith, which is my favorite movie, it's that final fight and how emotional it is. Yeah, the lightsaber fight is great, but also the emotion between Anakin and Obi-Wan, what they're going through. But when you start throwing these things to compare yourself to, you gotta be careful, because now you're putting, especially on non-Star Wars fans, we hear that and we start giving it like 3 or 4 other notches. So you gotta be careful. I think it's like you say, it's going to be very grounded. I understand why people keep saying, "Oh, we didn't use cables, we didn't use CGI. All this is practical." I know that's been the cool thing to say for the past 10 years, and then you find out all the CGI and special effects that go behind it. So at some point, it's like, just chill, just say that you had fun doing the show. But I'm extremely excited. I saw the potato camera that they got from Star Wars Celebration. I saw a little bit of it, and I can see the martial arts behind it, seeing Carrie Moss and fight. So I think that's going to be part of it. It's not just going to be lightsaber fights, or there's going to be a lot of different fighting style for these Force users, which is going to be interesting. So I'm really excited for it. And then you bring that sense it's going to be as artistic as the prequel trilogy fights, then I get more excited, because that's what I want to see. We've grown past the original trilogy style of fighting. I know some people like it, but we all know the reason it's kind of janky and showy and so, because they weren't the best duelists at that point. Things have kind of progressed. There's a lot of great stunt coordinators out there. So I'm great that they're going to keep doing that. And then going to your point about more practical effects or practical sets, which are great, and we've seen it. That's why this show is taking so long to make. And I'm going to read part of why it might be looking that way, is that there were some additional comments regarding the multitude of aliens that this show will showcase, the tangible words, more builds, less green screen. And according to Forbes, the pre-production budget for the Acolyte was a whopping $50 million. Pre-production. And I think they say that Andor was around $65 million. And we saw the quality we got with Andor in terms of set design and how the show looked. $50 million is a lot of money, especially for a TV show for pre-production.
Yes.
This means the show is going to be like $100 million production budget. That's a totally different issue. Why are we going so high for a TV show? I know Andor cost like $200 million, but that was 12 episodes. This is going to be 6 or 8. So it's still like, man, pay your writers, right? Pay your actors.
Yes.
Does that bother? Is it some concern that all this money gets? Why are things being so expensive? And then, like, Mission Impossible 7. I know I'm changing subjects and I just took a left turn. I love that movie, that first one. Why did it make so much money? Because the production, at what point we don't care, but Solo shouldn't have cost $250 million.
Mhm.
I know there were a lot of reshoots, but they gotta start scaling back. Is that one of the problems with going now so far into practical sets? And then now the production budget is gonna be so high. But
I
at the
mean,
same
yes
time, they
and
don't pay
no.
us. Sorry?
I think you need, it's all about who you're working with,
Yeah.
because look at Oppenheimer. It cost a
Yeah.
$100 million, and it's they literally made it all how they could, and it
Yeah, I know.
looks like it cost 500 million. Like the guy
Yeah.
literally makes it so particular. And even Barbie, like Barbie has amazing practical sets, practical effects, practical a lot of things. It cost, I think, 145 million.
Mhm.
And I think it's all about who you give the money to, and that's my biggest problem with the Disney machine, which is
Mm.
unfortunately the people behind Star Wars, is that they just give the money to everybody. They're just
Yeah.
like, hey, this here's all the $200 million, deal with it. And I don't know, I think that concerns me. That really
Yeah.
does concern me. But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we don't know. We haven't seen the show. So hopefully those $50 million, you can understand why. All right, so let's go to our final news item of the day. And this is, it's coming. We all hate it, but I think it's coming. And it's AI, artificial intelligence in Star Wars. And according to the Hollywood Reporter, Disney, along with other media companies, have several open positions focused on AI and machine learning, with one of those position description asking for ambition to push the limits of what AI tools can create and understand the difference between the voice of data and the voice of a designer, writer, or artist. Do you think this will make its way into Star Wars TV shows or movies in the near future, Tony?
I mean, I don't know. AI scares me. I read a lot of Asimov and a lot of
Mhm.
like Douglas Adams type of sci-fi stuff, so I'm like always scared about that. But I think it's eventually gonna make its way into everything. I
Yeah.
do think that aside from the Bob Iger of it all, um, there is being a lot of trust put into creators and creative people who stand behind their products, especially in Star Wars. We have Leslie Headland, Tony Scott, like um the everybody who's working on the movies with Dave Filoni and James Mangold. So I think they'll push back on anything that they don't want to use. But I feel like, if anything, the studios are just trying to make the positions available because it's out there, it's happening. So why not take advantage of it, and why not use it when they can? Like I said, I think the creatives will push back when they can, and they will say, hey, I'm not gonna use it for what you like. Let's say they're like, hey, why don't you use it to write a script? Then they might be like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
But maybe they're like, hey, why don't you use it to see how it designs like a hyperspace sequence or something that goes crazy? Then they're like, I don't know, let's see what happens, because you never know.
Yeah.
And that's one of the magical things of AI, is that it's kind of progressed to the point that you just don't know how much it can do. I think that there's still obviously so many limits to it. So my stance on it is very weird, because while I don't necessarily believe in it, and I don't necessarily think that is where we should be putting all our money towards, or all our like future towards, I think it would be foolish to not take advantage of it and not
Mm.
use it. So I think that's really all I feel like. I just don't know. I don't know enough about it to fully tell you, hey, don't use it, don't, like, that's what,
Mm.
or to be like, yes, 100%, this is the best thing. What I know about it is that it could be helpful, so why not take advantage of it? And understanding that the people who we are bringing to make these projects are good enough artists that they'll know when to say no. Like, I really don't think, aside from the whole de-aging sequence in Dial of Destiny and all that bullshit and whatever happened, like, I don't think James Mangold would be like, yes, I want AI to do everything in my movie now. Like, I think he wouldn't. Like, I think he would want to make it himself.
I think it's gonna happen. I don't want it to happen, but I think that ways. I know that the writers and actors are. That's one of the big contentions also during the strike is all this AI talk and who's getting scanned to then be used in perpetuity for all the background actors and all that. Putting that aside, I think this is going to happen sooner than we think. De-aging and deep fakes and all that is part of AI. It's the same thing, just putting all this information into the computer and they figure out the image for that person. It's the same thing they're doing for the stories. They're just getting all this different data from all the art they can find online and then create their own through AI. So this is out there already. Lucasfilm, I think they want to follow George Lucas' vision of pushing technology. So, and like you said, they use it for Dial of Destiny to de-age Harrison Ford. I don't think we're going to be seeing Alden Ehrenreich again. I don't think we're going to be seeing any recasting for all these legacy characters. I think they're just going to double down on doing AI, digital manipulation of the images just to make all this de-aging. Like you said, I don't think that they're at the point that let's just write the whole movie with AI, but if they're having issues with the script at some point and let's see if AI can kind of punch this up a little bit, they might try that, and that way kind of goes forward. So I don't want it, but I think it's inevitable at this point that eventually it's going to be more. We might not even know about it, but it's going to be there, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's where there's so many things, especially in the world of Hollywood and filmmaking and movie making, television, all that stuff, that in and of itself is so weird. That it wouldn't surprise me if we'll suddenly start hearing about, this writer that has credits on every show, and it's suddenly that's like the name that they're giving to the AI tool.
Yeah, it's the pen name. It goes name.
Or it's like, when directors leave their movies when they're like 75% made, and it's like, okay, well then give it to AI to finish it. I think it's all about what story we want to tell. It's like the Martin Scorsese did the whole Irishman thing, and it's like, hey, let's take 1,000,000 years to de-age Robert De Niro, fuck it. But that's what they want to do. That's the story they want to tell. I think as long as we don't cross the lines of like, hey, let's use AI just so we don't have to pay amazing writers and amazing actors, or what I'm not liking, and it was like Oti and I were talking about it recently with The Flash that came out, and spoiler alert, there is a sequence in The Flash that like shows a bunch of different people from a multiverse, one of them being George Reeves, the original Superman who committed suicide very sadly years ago because he hated being Superman. But they used his footage to put him in the movie, and like his family is mad about it because he never wanted to be Superman again. There's things like that piss me off, and I'm like, okay, I don't want stuff like that to happen. I want actors to be respected, their image to be respected, their voice to be respected. But then you have Harrison Ford being like, I don't care, they have all this footage of me, why shouldn't they de-age me? Why shouldn't they do all this stuff? Like, they own it. They already own the footage of me. He's like, I already sold my rights, so I don't care. But I think it's about what work is being done and how it's being handled. At the end of the day, if people's, rights are not being, messed with, and people are getting fairly compensated for their work, that's really all that matters, right?
Yeah. All right. So we'll see how that goes. It's coming. All right, so that does it for our Star Wars topic for today, as we finally came back from a 1-month break. But there's one more thing let's talk about real quick. It's one of our favorite parts of the show, and it's when we listen from you guys on this segment. It's Rebel Thoughts.
Well done. You're a rebel now.
All right, and for the first time, we're gonna comment on Blue Sky. So if you're on Blue Sky, find us over there. So Ash Mothman at Mon Mothman Blue Sky says my most anticipated, talking about fate from a certain point of view, is No Contingency by Fran Wild because I am the most normal about Mon Mothma. Again, Mon Mothma is one of those characters that, thanks to Andor, just keeps going. We'll see her in Ahsoka, and of course, from a certain point of view. So thanks, Ash, for your comments, and can't wait to. I haven't read that one yet, so we'll see how that goes. All right, Tony. I think it's about that time. It's a short show today. Like I mentioned before we started, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, but we made it through. Well, thanks for being here. Anything else that we can? Where can people follow you? What are you doing right now? Where can we see you next?
Well, we're gonna be keeping on with Film Not Included, so you can check us out there. El podcast de Star Wars is sporadically coming back. You know how Oti is. He'll plan that when he plans that. I know he wants to talk about some stuff, so definitely be coming back soon. I also recently opened up a new page called Collectoni 52, which I'll be talking about my huge collection of a bunch of stuff, movies, TV shows, books, comic books, a little bit of everything. So you can follow me there and check me out there. I'm trying to stay topical with everything that's happening. Talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles this week because movie's coming out. I'm excited for that. But yeah, that's where you guys can check us out. Film Not Included and El Podcast de Star Wars are kind of the two main places, and then Collectoni 52 to check out my collections page.
All right, so everyone out there, make sure you're checking that. If you stay through all the way to the end, thank you. Make sure you hit that like button. And thanks to the Sith Eternal, Mo, Brennan, and of course Dale. Thanks for being here. It's always great when I get to talk Star Wars. So I'm glad to be back. We'll be back next week. We'll see if Oti joins us. What we're talking about next week, I don't know. Maybe it'll be our Ahsoka preview show, or maybe it'll be something else. So make sure you join us next week. Stay safe, be safe, and may the Force be with you.